fresh out of a month of no load shedding, but Eskom projects the return of stage 2 for the winter months. In the meantime, the integrated resource plan was designed to provide a roadmap to end the rolling blackouts. First published in 2019 and updated earlier this year as 2023 draft regulation for comment, does it provide a satisfactory roadmap for the country's power needs? Bonga Maliwa, private debt dealmaker at Futuregrowth, joins us with his assessment. Thank you so much for your time, Bonga. Let's actually talk about the life of the IRP, because the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy says that it is a living plan that can be chopped and changed according to the circumstances that we are under at that time. Should it be flexible?
Yeah, so it should be flexible. I mean, I think that's what it's meant for. That's why it gets updated frequently. Right now, it's been, 5 years since the last one. But I think our biggest problem with the current draft is that it moved away from what was published in 2019, and it doesn't seem to be pragmatic, and it seems to be centered around ideology more than like pragmatic solutions to the current load shedding that the country is experiencing.
I'm actually keen then to, before we get into this IRP 2023 here, between 2019 and to date, load shedding has gone from a mild crisis to an absolute crisis. And what's happened since then is we've had various other pieces of, policies coming through to end load shedding, to respond to the future of a green energy here. So when we look at the IRP 2023, does it take stock of all the other documents, all the various committees that have come together to look at South Africa's energy crisis?
Yeah, I think that's a struggle, right? So, I mean, that's what prompted us to write the article and also try to simplify what the thinking is from an investment perspective, right? Because we're very eager, essentially, for the IRP, and out of all those interventions, like for example that you've highlighted, it seems to move away from that, doesn't consider none of those interventions. And you would have seen that there has been a lot of backlash to the document because it doesn't align with the National Development Plan, doesn't align with the recommendations that came out of the Presidential Climate Commission. So, and doesn't acknowledge the fact that the government currently is not in a position to essentially fund some of the requirements that are required to solve the power crisis in the country.
Yeah, and really it speaks to my thinking, because I mean, you talk about, this flexible document, but at the same time, you wonder how much room then government should have. And clearly they have a lot of room, because as you say, 2023 is different, has moved away from 2019. Talk to us then about those changes that we are seeing here in 2023.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest change is the fact that the new IRP draft doc underplays the role of renewables in essentially solving the current power crisis in South Africa. So I think what people need to realize, which I think most energy experts essentially agree on this, is that you need renewables essentially to solve the power crisis in the country. It was a recognition by Eskom that they've got old coal plants and they need to decommission those. And then you've got the PPC essentially that went through a wide consultation process to establish what is the most economical way we can actually solve the power crisis. There is no funding for new coal plants. Our own clients as an investment house do not want to fund coal plants. So the idea that you can extend these coal plants, firstly, they're unreliable, and you can't build new ones because there's no funding for it. But there's a lot of funding for green energy.
I want to speak also then about a transmission here, Bonga, what the IRP 2023 says about transmission, because it sounds like when you speak to the government, their ability and their focus on building the National Transmission Company of South Africa and also that transmission network is what is the determining factor for how quickly we can adopt renewables here. Keen just to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so again, another point where the government has acknowledged they don't have the money to essentially build to solve the transmission network issues we have. And again, here it has been made very clear by the private sector, their willingness essentially to partner with the government to fund and solve the transmission issues that the country is experiencing. And what we are trying to implore the government to do essentially is to focus their energy in trying to maximize and capitalize on the available funding by the private sector. Because they acknowledge themselves that they don't have the necessary funding, but there's a lot of pension money that we are managing as Futuregrowth, also as other institutional managers, investors, sorry. And that money essentially is ready to be deployed to solve some of the energy issues that we have in the country.
Yeah. Bonga, I mean, you spoke about the PCC earlier on, that they did come out with a plan of recommendations where they focused on renewable energy, really the most cost-effective way to secure energy supply. But I mean, who should be responsible for ensuring that those recommendations are given the light of day or even some consideration?
I mean, that commission, first of all, was set up because there was a lot of interventions that the government had, and the president needed to have one formidable solution to all the different recommendations that were out there. And after that wide consultation, essentially, it came to that conclusion that there is no funding for coal plants, but there is a lot of funding for renewable energy, and it's more sustainable. And then also it's very much aligned with the NDP, because the NDP tries to focus on ensuring that there's sustainable power, and that the power that we have as a country is also accessible to the most vulnerable in the country. And then also, importantly, you also have clean power going forward. So that is what essentially the PPC was addressing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We do have to wrap up the conversation, Bonga. That was Bonga Maliwa, private debt deal maker at Futuregrowth.